Hello, dear listeners. Welcome back to another episode of our motivational podcast series. Today, Larry and I are diving into a book that has truly changed the way many perceive vulnerability and courage. The title we're exploring today is Daring Greatly: How the Courage to be Vulnerable Transforms the Way We Live, Love, Parent, and Lead, by the phenomenal Brené Brown. Larry, I remember you mentioning this book a while back, and I'm so excited to finally discuss it.
Absolutely, Susan. Brené Brown's work, particularly in Daring Greatly, has truly reshaped the way I understand vulnerability and its role in our daily lives. The book is an invitation, or perhaps more aptly, a challenge to readers, urging us all to embrace our vulnerabilities rather than shy away from them.
It's fascinating because vulnerability is something most of us have been conditioned to view as a weakness. But Bryn flips that perspective entirely. The book is rooted in years of research and countless interviews. Bryn, with her background in social work and research, brings empirical evidence to the table, demonstrating that vulnerability is actually a source of strength and connection.
Indeed. She brilliantly uncovers that vulnerability is at the core of meaningful human experiences, be it in our personal relationships, our work, or even how we perceive ourselves. It's the birthplace of innovation, creativity, and change. By daring greatly, she's referring to the act of letting ourselves be seen, truly and deeply seen, in all our imperfections and uncertainties.
And the title itself is inspired by a speech by Theodore Roosevelt called The Man in the Arena, which emphasizes the importance of showing up, taking risks, and being present even if it means facing criticism or failure. It's a powerful reminder that it's not about winning or losing, but about the courage to show up.
I couldn't agree more. Bream's unique blend of storytelling, humor, and insightful research breaks down complex topics into digestible and relatable segments. She delves into why we armor up and protect ourselves from vulnerability, and how this protective mechanism can often hold us back from deeper connections and living a fuller life.
And speaking of armor, Bren introduces this concept of foreboding joy, a phenomenon where, in moments of immense joy, we're immediately overtaken by the fear of something going wrong. It's as if we're trying to protect ourselves from getting hurt. But in doing so, we rob ourselves of the very joy we're experiencing.
That's a profound observation, Susan. It truly underscores the importance of embracing vulnerability. As we delve deeper into the book, listeners will discover that Daring Greatly is not just about personal vulnerability. Brain touches upon how vulnerability plays out in parenting, leadership, and even in educational settings.
Absolutely. This book has layers upon layers of insights, and today we're going to unwrap them together. So let's dive deeper into the transformative power of vulnerability and how Daring greatly challenges and inspires us to embrace it. Continuing our discussion on Daring Greatly, one aspect that stood out to me was how Brené Brown emphasizes that vulnerability isn't just about sharing our deepest and darkest secrets. It's about showing up and being seen without any guarantee of outcome. Larry, in our line of work, we often talk about the importance of taking risks. How do you see that connecting with the essence of this book?
That's a great point, Susan. In many ways, vulnerability is the ultimate risk. It's putting yourself out there, fully and authentically, without any armor. Bren consistently brings up the idea that when we numb the difficult emotions, we also numb joy, gratitude, and happiness. In trying to shield ourselves from potential hurt or disappointment, we inadvertently close off the avenues for genuine connection and fulfillment.
It's a paradox, isn't it? We live in a world that often equates vulnerability with weakness, yet it's that very vulnerability that allows us to experience some of life's most enriching moments. Bren also touches upon the cultural and societal pressures that feed into our fear of being vulnerable. From the media we consume to the societal standards we're expected to uphold, there are myriad forces that subtly and overtly shape our perspectives on vulnerability.
Absolutely. And Bren does a fantastic job at dismantling some of those myths. For instance, she talks about how vulnerability is often perceived as oversharing, but in reality, vulnerability is about boundaries and trust. It's about sharing with people who've earned the right to hear your story. It's not a matter of throwing everything out there for everyone to see, but rather discerning who is worthy of that trust.
Speaking of trust, I found the sections on shame and its connection to vulnerability particularly enlightening. Bryn delineates between guilt, which is feeling bad about something we did, and shame, which is feeling bad about who we are. Understanding and combating shame, according to her, is central to embracing vulnerability.
Oh, without a doubt. Shame thrives in secrecy, silence, and judgment. Bream's research highlights that the antidote to shame is empathy. When we can relate to another person's experience and make them feel seen and understood, shame can't survive. It's a powerful testament to the significance of human connection and how it can be a healing force.
And that brings us to one of the key takeaways from Daring Greatly, the idea of wholehearted living. Bryn introduces this term to describe individuals who, despite their fears and feelings of inadequacy, choose to engage with the world from a place of worthiness. They cultivate resilience, gratitude, and embrace vulnerability as a necessary part of their existence.
It's a beautiful concept, isn't it? This idea of living life with your whole heart, not just parts of it that you deem acceptable. By accepting and embracing our vulnerabilities, we can lead richer, more fulfilling lives anchored in genuine connections and a deep sense of purpose.
Precisely. Daring Greatly is a call to action for all of us, urging us to shed the weight of societal expectations and dare to show up just as we are. It's about embracing our imperfections, our fears, our doubts, and recognizing that in doing so, we open the doors to deeper relationships, greater creativity, and an unparalleled zest for life. As we wrap up our discussion on Daring Greatly by Brené Brown, I must say, this book serves as a beacon for everyone navigating the intricate pathways of human emotions and relationships. The central message that vulnerability is not a sign of weakness, but rather the most accurate measure of courage, is both empowering and transformative.
Absolutely, Susan. Bream's work invites us to dive deep into our psyches, confront the demons of shame and unworthiness, and emerge with a renewed sense of purpose and authenticity. The journey of self-exploration she proposes isn't easy, but it's undoubtedly worth it. By daring greatly, we not only enrich our personal lives, but also contribute positively to our communities and the broader world.
Beautifully put, Larry. For our listeners, if there's one thing to take away from today's episode, let it be this. Embracing vulnerability might be the most daring act of all, but it paves the way for genuine connections, creativity, and a life lived wholeheartedly. We highly recommend giving Daring Greatly's a read. It's a transformative experience that offers a fresh perspective on the intricacies of human emotions and interactions.
Indeed. It's a book that has the potential to shift paradigms and change lives. Thank you, Susan, for this enriching discussion, and to our listeners for joining us today. Until next time, dare greatly and embrace the power of vulnerability.
Thank you, Larry. And to everyone tuning in, remember to always strive for authenticity and to be kind to yourself and others. Take care and see you in the next episode.